Hello, I am Meisha Key, previously an SSC member, and I was contracted to populate the Research and Data Needs database, which is based on the 2018 Research and Data Needs document. This video is an overview of how to navigate the database, and it should take about 10 minutes. So let's get started. Everything I will be talking about today is on the Query List tab. The Reports tab has not been modified at this stage in the process. There will be a future discussion and recommendations made about how reporting will be done and whether this is a need of the council or not. So back to the query list. Each line is a record representing a research or data need. The column headings, which we will go into more detail in the pull-down menus to the left, they can be used to quickly filter information with the arrows at the top of the column. So if you wanted to filter or sort the high council priorities, it'll do so. Or you could go over to council priorities and hit high, which will show you, take you to the bottom, that there are 87 high priority entries out of 357. So those are two different ways that you can sort. You can also use a combination to filter records. You can search up at the top right-hand corner. For example, if you wanted to put in CPUE, that'll search CPUE in the title and keywords. So all CPUE records will come up. And if you just wanted to see the high CPUE items, you could, the high priority ones, there are 3 of those, and many more unranked. Whenever you search up in the right top hand corner, always remember to delete that, else you're going to stay only within that CPUE. We also have council actions. For example, if you wanted to search habitat issues, these are habitat issues that have come up. And if you wanted to look only at, say, CPS and remove the habitat issues, these are CPS, all of the CPS. And if you just wanted to look at habitat, there's an example of that. So I'm going to walk you through the pull-down menus now, and I will show you the details of a record when we get to the duplicate section at the end. So now I'm going to take you through the pull-down menus to the left, beginning with the PFMC advisors. These are the advisors who provide input to the SSC around prioritization and adding and deleting projects. You'll notice that the advisory subpanels have not yet been added to this list. And just to be clear, these advisory bodies currently don't have the ability to prioritize within the database. Yet the council intends on making this change, and this will be a structural change to the database to be done by the Pacific states. Next is the council actions. Council staff need to review this list and determine the actions that they want to use. This field will need to be modified unless it is decided to delete the field altogether. In the meantime, I typically entered harvest specs as a placeholder, given the majority of the projects lead to an understanding of stock status. I also used economics and ecosystem or habitat issues as well. Every field has to have something to save, so if I was uncertain, I would use harvest specs. The research focus in general is the focus based on which FMP or the chapter like economics made the recommendation. At times, multiple FMPs made the recommendation, and these were flagged as duplicates. I'll give you an example of this when we talk more about duplicates at the end. One thing I would like to address here is the Habitat Committee recommended separating habitat from ecosystem to ensure that habitat research is highlighted and more easily located during a search of the database. There are already ways to do this without adding additional work, which address their concern. For one, you can simply search for habitat, or you can go through habitat issues in the council-related action. So I think this has been addressed as far as their concerns. Council priorities. The recommendation was to use high urgent, and unranked, which high urgent is new. Basically, these are the SSC recommendations that the council adopted in 2018. Currently, if it was not a high priority, it is ranked, it is marked as unranked. The SSC priorities, these rankings are the same, and they are currently all unmarked as unranked, and a process to prioritize will be developed. The research status, these will obviously need to be updated in the next iteration. Currently, no action was used unless the project said to continue or to develop a pilot study, which I may have used underway or partially underway, but for the most part, no action was used here. Area, there are numerous options for area. Areas can be added and deleted. And then the duplicates. I dealt with duplicates in one of three ways. At times a combination, which I'll show you with a few examples. So what a record looks like. Let me use an example here. This is a record, and this is an example of combining duplicates into one record, and that is typically within an FMP. So for this example, this methodology request was the same for numerous species, so I created one item and added the species to the keywords at the bottom here. I also added the source documentation where these requests came from. Each field must have something to be saved, so if I did not know the source, you will see TBD here, and this is something that will need to be done in the future, adding source documentation to records. Notice all of the information from the pull-down tabs are here. The status tab, this is where you will find information relating to the scientific objectives, the type of research, the year added, which is generally 2018, the year of the document. However, in this example, this was from the groundfish appendix and was a request in the 2015 assessment cycle. Lastly, you'll see additional notes of importance from the document here. So, duplicates, it actually does have a duplicate here that I have flagged. It will need to be decided whether the intent is the same or if it is a duplicate or not. You'll notice here this the scientific objective for this item for developing objective criteria for setting the threshold when applying the Stevens-McCall method for CPUE index. This scientific objective is to determine whether the threshold can be optimized. If you go to the duplicate record, which was 1128, you will see that the sources that this recommendation came from and the status here is different to evaluate the performance of the method when there are changes in management restrictions. So those are the kinds of things that you'll have to look out for in the future to determine whether the intent is the same and whether it's an actual duplicate or something else. Another example of duplicates with similar requests is among FMPs, not within the FMP where I combined them before. I kept these types separate for prioritization purposes, assuming each FMP will prioritize their own. So an example of this is from the ecosystem. All advisors are listed for ecosystem items. And this is the develop ecosystem-based models that incorporate environmental variation. And if I take you to the status, you'll notice that this is year 2013 because it was carried over as a high priority from the 2013 document. And you'll notice that the scientific objective here is to guide harvest policies and enable risk assessments for fishing strategies. There's a duplicate here, and this came from the salmon FMP. And just to show you here, if I go over to that, this is in the salmon research focus, high priority, and their status is the same. So this is, in my opinion, a duplicate record, yet from two different FMPs. Again, they're kept separate for prioritization purposes. I did create a list of all items in an Excel spreadsheet by FMP that will be helpful to the SSC when talking about duplicates and where it is possible to combine similar items. So that concludes the overview of how to navigate through the Research and Data Needs database. I hope it was helpful. And I would like to thank Merrick, as well as Chuck Tracy and John DeVore for letting me continue to be a part of this work. And I would also like to thank Rick Bush and Josh Clemens of Pacific States for making recommended structural changes as needed. Thank you.